So now, what's the next component? Well, there's two main components in this style of music that seems to be popular at the moment, and that's keeping the percussion quite simple on the surface of things, but it's actually quite complex. And that's one of the misconceptions about this type of music, is people often criticizing it as being easy to make. Well, trust me, it isn't easy to make at all, because there's minimal elements. Every single element is therefore exposed, and each element really needs to be worthwhile. You have to really justify every sound being in there. So if I go here, I'm just going to delete these, by the way, because I'm not using them. That's just my template inputs for my modular and the drum machine. What I'm going to do is create some very straightforward 16ths. And again, I'm going to go to machine to do this. Get rid of that kick there. I just reset that, and very simple 16ths here. Right, let's go to, I think, a nice analog sounding closed hi-hat is what we're looking for here. Get rid of the sub filter, and what I'm going to look for is a variation on the 909. There we go. Now this, in this style of music, is generally right down in the mix, but what I'm going to do for now, if I can zoom in on this view, get it to a bit larger, this is where the complexity comes in, because that kind of rigid sound obviously is not great. So here you mess very subtly with the velocities. In fact, that's where the rhythmic element comes in. Even though I'm not shuffling it at all, this type of techno doesn't really lend itself to the groove templates or the shuffles that you can get in Ableton and Machine, etc. It's generally very straight, no swing at all, for instance. But what I like to play with here, if I go into I'll leave it on the standard emulation. If I go into the pitch and envelope, if I tune it down a little bit, it doesn't sound so urgent. One of the things, I'm doing this tutorial on headphones, and I hate working with headphones as well, because for some reason it really messes with my perception of pitch. I always pitch things way too high if I ever try to make tracks using headphones. So just bear with me. To me that sounds nice and low. It might just sound ridiculously high when I listen to it on monos. It's just something that affects me. I know some people love headphones, but I can't get on with them. But anyway, let's see what we can do with this. That's perfect. Right, and again, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to leave that in Machine for long. Just take that out of there, because I'm not going to do anything with it in Machine. So, and now this is another thing that I am an absolute stickler for, and that's, even though I'm pretty sure it was all lined up to the grid, I double check, I zoom right in on every single transient and make sure that everything is lined up time wise. Okay, now what I'm going to do with this is lower it. It really becomes just a kind of subliminal thing in the background that keeps the tempo going. And what you do is you combine this with a shaker, and this shaker sound again, you might think, well, that's incredibly simple, but the shaker is sometimes what the whole track is about. It's incredible how many tracks are just incredible because they have an absolute killer shaker. So let's go back to our drums. Let's go to our shaker. And it's the typical kind of long hi-hat place where I put it. And you'll hear, let's go through this. Okay, that's too metallic. That's too realistic. It's a little bit soft. Again, that's a bit too realistic for me. Okay, it's kind of realistic, but it's got a nice kind of a transient attack to it that I quite like, actually. And what I like to do, again, do the same. Now what I like to do here is leave it within machine, because what you're generally going to do as the arrangement of your track unfolds, you generally want to up the intensity, and one of the key ways to do this is to mess around with these shakers, so that kind of effect as it enters like another phase of the track. You can mess with the envelope. And also, one of the things I love to do with these shakers is get the machine internal beat delay. Take it right down. It's fine where it is, actually. It's almost like giving it a slapback kind of feel. But then when you go back and mess with the envelope, the effect, you can really start opening it up as you go through the arrangement. So in Machina, what we need to do is go to our automation here, and if we select host, then we can enable these, and what you'll see, we enable that as auto 1 and auto 2. We'll be able to play with these as we go through our arrangement. If I just press configure, and now when I click on hold and decay, you'll see that they appear, and I have my Ableton Push 2 here, and I can now control the hold and decay using Ableton's automation. Right, that's all fairly straightforward, so I'll leave that going for now. Now what I want to do next is create some movement in what we have so far. So again, bear with me while I just remind myself that the hi-hats are here. And if I just do a bit of housekeeping, kick top, sub, and then the hats, and we have Machina here. So yeah, I'm going to create some more movement here with these hi-hats, and the way I like to do this is two things. I have a really nice emulation of one of the greatest flangers ever made, the famous MXR. So just pop that in there, and it's fairly straightforward. You have various presets that UAD have given you, but it's fairly simple to just you can see we just keep it on the flanger setting rather than a doubler, and we've got dual or single, and we just take that right down. Want it to be very subtle, don't want to lose some of the signal. Sometimes with flanging you lose a bit of the signal, and then what I want to do to create even more movement, and And it seems every time I do one of these tutorials, one of the smaller plugins that I use seems to be very popular, and I'm really pleased about that. In the past, it's been Meld Productions with their fantastic M Compare and the M Auto Dynamic EQ. I had lots of messages from people saying that they've purchased those and it's become invaluable in their sessions. Well, this might be too, because there are more complex auto panners out there, but this one from Cable Guys is just so simple, and it seems to just really have a wide sweet spot. So what we're going to do is put that on the hi-hat. You'll see here it's swinging around far too much. It's swinging around from left to right every 2 bars, and what I like to do is, that's still not fast enough for me. Now we take the mix right down. That's so subtle as to be almost subliminal, but for me it gives another really subtle sense of movement. So here we have our rhythm track, where the shaker at the moment is probably quite dry. So what I'm going to do is choose another reverb. This time I'm going to choose something different from the Eventide Black Hole. I'm going to go into my packs, and here we have quite another extreme reverb. I think I'm going to go for some effects. I'm just going to try these. This particular, I think it's a Max for Live pack. It's called Outer Spaces. It's made by a third-party company called Amazing Noises. Let's just go through some of these presets. Excellent stuff. Okay, again, you can hear that's quite a lot of reverb. So let's take the dry wet right down. That's merging really nicely with the rumble of the kick now. So there we already have a nice rhythmic section. There is one more kind of element that I like to put in. I go back to my MIDI, and I usually use my external Roland TR8 for this because it just sounds the closest to the original hardware. Going to add a nice ride. But I can do that using one of the kits. Let's use a 909 classic kit here. And again, this is going to merge. It's going to be quite loud at first. It's going to merge with the shaker. Right, and what I do to get movement out of this very static sound, is duck it using this. Now, ducking or sidechain filtering can be a bit of a cliche, but it really helps create some movement when you don't just use it as an effect to exaggerate the sound. That sucking kind of sound is not really what you want. It's not really what I'm looking for in this kind of track. It immediately kind of switches it closer to the trance genre. But there's a really nice plugin, again from Cable Guys, this filter shaper here. And rather than using the traditional compression method of doing sidechain filtering, this has a really nice way of doing it, which is just a volume sidechain. There you go. Let's take the intensity down. Yeah, I think that's pretty tough. You know, I haven't got any compression or EQ. But we can easily see what would happen in the mix stage by slapping a compressor on one of the kicks. I'll leave that for the stage that I'm going to do after this for now. It's the way I work, and again, I've collaborated with people and they can't really understand why I leave these sounds not really fully formed, and it's because in my head they are already fully formed. I know I can see the final picture. I think it's important as a producer to be able to have in your mind what the final picture is going to be once everything's compressed, EQ'd, mixed, all the levels done. But sometimes I will work with someone and say, well, why you know, that is too loud or whatever. I don't pay any attention generally. It's just I can imagine what it's going to sound like at the end. So I think rhythmically I have everything I need now. That's pretty basic, but you know, when I add some of the automation for that shaker, I think it's got enough movement in there as a basis, rhythmic basis. What I would probably do in addition is maybe let's create another MIDI track just to experiment with an idea. Let's get some claps here. So if I got a 909 clap here, okay, so it's obviously on a C3 sample here. Just want that to come in at the end, and what I'm going to experiment here, it's just like a fill, but first of all I'm going to go to one of my favorite delays, the H delay from Waves. You hear that it's phasing there because it's already a dotted pattern, so I'm going to change this slightly. And by increasing the wet signal you can get another kind of rhythmic effect out of it. And then I'm going to slap a nice reverb on here. And again I'm going to go to use one of these outer space kind of effects. It's got a nice metallic ring. That's nice. I'll try it all wet. I would probably fine tune that a little bit, but I think that's fairly good for now. You can hear it's pumping already, and I haven't really done anything compression or EQ wise. It's a fairly sort of heavy track, and as I said, I would probably just have this much later on. Maybe even have it every 4 bars. Okay.
If you like this course, why not head over to sonicacademy.com, where we have hundreds of complete track builds in every genre imaginable, including all the project files and samples. You'll also find tutorials on plugins and synths, mixing and mastering, over 250 tech tips, artist interviews, along with our award-winning plugins, samples and preset packs.